All right, AMT, this is something that is not on the exam. I'm just going to repeat that one more time. This is not on the exam. I've got 2 slides on it, just this and one more. This used to be heavily tested on the exam. This is here in case you were just interested, in case they may mention AMT, right? You may see a question that just talks about it and says, oh, ignore AMT, but it's not tested on the exam, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like if something on the financial exam, they talk about stock warrants. Now, you're not explicitly tested on stock warrants, but it's helpful to know what it is. So if you want to tap out now and just watch the summary and wrap up here, that's totally fine. If you wanted a quick intro into what the AMT is, here we go. We'll run through it pretty quickly and knock it out. Now, the AMT, this does exist. I mean, it's not like it doesn't exist. It's just, it went through significant changes after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and it's, again, not tested on the exam. So this is a parallel tax system. It's an alternative minimum tax, making sure you pay a minimum tax that's alternative to how the normal system works. It's designed to ensure that high-income individuals pay a minimum amount of tax, even if they, finagle the system and use significant deductions and credits. It was introduced to prevent taxpayers from using various breaks to reduce their tax liability excessively. This calculation is going to differ from the regular income tax calculation, with some deductions disallowed and different exemption amounts and tax rates applied. So completely crazy, wild new system. I mean, you used to have a sim on this that was absolutely bonkers, and I'm going to be honest with you, I went on a limb and knew it was going to be removed from the exam. I didn't study it too hard, and luckily I didn't get anything on it. But if you took it, let's say 2017 or prior to that, yeah, you probably would have gotten slammed with something like this. All right, here's an example here. Again, you're not going to do this on the exam. This is just if you're interested, if you've heard of AMT before, let's just run through it. So assume we've got a taxpayer that they have a regular taxable income of $500,000, and they have $100,000 in deductions, including some that are not allowed under the AMT system. So there's a bunch of deductions that you normally, or in the past, would have had to memorize that are not allowed under the AMT system. So if this taxpayer has to use the AMT system because they meet the threshold, they have to use the AMT system, they have too much wealth, then you'd have to know which deductions are disallowed. So let's say that we've got $20,000 of deductions disallowed for AMT purposes. This is the calculation here. Calculate the AMT taxable income. So this is an alternative taxable income. This is going to be your regular taxable income, and you're going to reduce it by any regular deductions, and you're going to add back any disallowed deductions for AMT. Again, you don't need to know what those are. You don't need to know any of this. This is just for your own purposes. So we start out with normal taxable income. We're going to subtract normal deductions, and we're going to add back disallowed deductions. Now we're going to apply the exemption. There is an exemption here. Gosh, they just love making it complicated, don't they? Let's say for year one, the AMT exemption amount for individual taxpayers is going to be $73,600. The exemption is going to phase out at higher income levels. So what's our AMT taxable income after the exemption? We're just going to simply say $420,000 from here. We're going to subtract that $73,600, gives us a reduced taxable income. And then step 3 here, we're going to calculate the AMT using the applicable AMT tax rates, which, again, thankfully you don't need to know. For 2021, the AMT tax rate is 26% on the first $199,900 of AMT taxable income and 28% on any amount above that. We do a little calculation here. See, just take your $199,900 times the 26%. Do the full calculation. Just take a look at that if you want. Again, don't want to spend too much time on this. In this example, the AMT liability is $92,994. Whereas normally, what would you do for tax purposes? You'd say taxable income of $500 minus $100,000 of deductions gives you $400,000, and then you would just use the marginal tax brackets on that. So you could compare what that normally would be. Since the AMT tax liability of $92,994 is higher, the taxpayer would pay an additional $7,994,000 in AMT, assuming that $85,000 was their initial amount of taxes they'd have to pay under the regular system. Now, in summary, this AMT aims to ensure that higher income individuals pay a minimum amount of tax by disallowing certain deductions and applying different exemption amounts and rates. It's a parallel tax system and does not work the same. However, it's similar, it's just based on the normal system and has a few adjustments. It's going to help to prevent taxpayers from excessively reducing their taxable liability using various tax breaks. Again, don't need to know this, just pretty brief, nice little background on it in case you see it mentioned or anything like that. Let's wrap it up with a goal summary and call it a day. Hey there, are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.